working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. On today's headlines. A spokesperson for China's foreign ministry defended Beijing's sovereign rights and the right of jurisdiction over the relevant waters after the Philippine Coast Guard accused its Chinese counterpart of steering one of its ships within meters of a Filipino patrol vessel in the South China Sea. President Duterte said it's prudent to keep classes suspended in areas within Taal Volcano's 7-kilometer danger zone. People in Singapore no longer have to wear masks outdoors as the city-state eases a raft of COVID restrictions. And a blood donation drive where Iglesia Ni Cristo members joined the campaign of the Laos Red Cross. The Philippines and the United States launched the largest ever joint military drills in the archipelago nation, signaling deepening defense ties as fresh tensions surface in the disputed South China Sea. First, let's listen in.
It's important to recognize that Balikatan is a tremendous training opportunity that will test and enhance the readiness that we have and strengthen the bond between our nations. Many of the service members participating in this year's exercise have trained together before. So in many ways, it's like old friends coming together to train together again, reconnecting with people that we call brothers and sisters now.
With this big number of participants, it is with pride to note that this year's exercise will be the largest attended activity ever to be conducted over the years. Moreover, the Philippine-U.S. Balikatan 2022 is truly special, as the magnitude of this year's exercise is a testament to the deepening alliance of our two countries.
The exercises cover maritime security, amphibious operation, live fire training, counterterrorism and humanitarian assistance, and disaster relief. Recent maneuvers between the two countries focused on potential conflict in the South China Sea, which Beijing claims almost in its entirety. Trillions of dollars in trade pass through the strategic sea and is thought to contain rich petroleum deposits, making it a frequent source of regional friction. Now, on the eve of the joint drills, the Philippine Coast Guard accused its Chinese counterpart of steering one of its ships within meters of a Filipino patrol boat near the disputed Scarborough Shoal, a flashpoint between the two countries. Take a look. PCG Chief Admiral Artemio Abu said the behavior of the involved China Coast Guard vessels increased the risk of collision with 4 of our capital ships. In the March 2 incident, the PCG said the Chinese vessel came within about 19 meters of its patrol boat, which was in clear violation of the 1972 international regulations for preventing collisions at sea. It was the 4th time in the past year that a Chinese Coast Guard vessel had conducted close-distance maneuvering near the shoal, according to the Philippine Coast Guard in a statement. Now, a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry defended Beijing's sovereign rights and the right of jurisdiction over the relevant waters after the Philippine Coast Guard accused its Chinese counterpart of steering one of its ships within meters of a Filipino patrol vessel in the South China Sea, breaking international rules and risking a collision. Take a look.
黄岩岛是中国的固有领土，中国对黄岩岛及其附近海域拥有主权，对相关海域拥有主权权利和管辖权。希望菲方船只切实尊重中方主权和权益，遵守中国的国内法和国际法，避免干扰影响中国海警在上述海域的巡航执法。
Now, the incident, as earlier mentioned, happened on the 2nd of March near Scarborough Shoal. It is one of the region's richest fishing grounds, also a flashpoint between the two countries, but was only made public on Sunday. It is the fourth time in the past year that a Chinese Coast Guard vessel had conducted close-distance maneuvering near this shoal. According to the Philippine Coast Guard, China seized Scarborough Shoal from the Philippines in 2012 following a tense standoff. The Southeast Asian country continues to patrol the waters around the shoal, which is inside its exclusive economic zone. Meanwhile, maritime law expert Jay Batong-Bakal gave his piece at Net25's ASPN program and said that with the Chinese Coast Guard ships maneuvering dangerously close to Philippine Coast Guard ships or patrol boats at least 4 times this year, this is a clear violation of international safety regulations. Take a look.
Nung mga 5 years ng pass under the Duterte administration na hindi nila pinapansin ang mga ginagawa ng Chinese dyan. No? So ayan, parang base doon sa inaction nung 5 years na yon, parang pinalalabas ngayon ng China, parang pumayag na tayo o kaya nakuha na nila yung lugar. No? Kaya ngayon tinatawag na nilang inherent territory nila. Nakita natin yung video at nabasa natin yung report ng Coast Guard. Pero ano yan bale, kumbaga, isang minuto lang yan out of perhaps 24 hours of events. No? So yung konteksto na yon hindi natin alam.
Okay.
Isa pa, yung ginawa nila na yon in the first place ay talagang hindi tama. Sila yung nag-set up ng situation. Kumbaga kinat nila yung Philippine Coast Guard, no? Kumbaga sa kotse, no? Nag-cut sila sa gitna at muntik na tuloy mabangga, no? Hindi 'yun tamang paggamit ng Coast Guard, no, at ng barko dahil sabi nga ng Coast Guard that's in violation of collision regulations, no? Sinadya po nila 'yon, no? So kahit umalis sila, parang baka ang konteksto niyan sinampulan lang ng Coast Guard, no? Kumbaga winarning na sa susunod na balik nila babanggay na talaga o kaya hindi natin alam, no? Speculation na 'yan. So ang importante, yung ginawa nila na 'yon ay mali talaga, no? At wala silang karapatan dapat para sa atin na gawin 'yon dahil hindi nila teritoryo ang Scarborough kundi sa atin, inagaw lang nila.
China seized Scarborough Shoal, a rich fishing area about 200 kilometers off the northwestern coast of the Philippines, 600 kilometers southeast of China. After a tense naval standoff back in 2012, Chinese Coast Guard ships then surrounded the shoal and restricted Filipino fishermen's access. In other news, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council said its contingency measures are well prepared for a possible prolonged unrest of the Taal volcano. Take a look.
Noong 2020 tapos 2021 nagkaroon ng activities itong si Taal. Napaghandaan na po natin. Meron po tayong contingency plan for the Taal emergency at lahat po ng mga leksyon na natutunan natin doon sa nakaraang mga operations natin ay ina-apply po natin ngayon. Sabi po ng CBOX, babantayan po nila for close monitoring itong Taal for 2 weeks. Kaya po yung preparation po natin for supplies ay lagpas po for the 2-week arrangement na yan in case na magkaroon po ng extended stay.
Mr. Timbal said local government units affected by Taal volcano's ongoing magmatic unrest include those of Agoncillo, Balete, Cuenca, Laurel, Lemery, Talisay, and San Luis. He also assured the public that there are no more people on the Taal volcano island, while efforts are ongoing to convince residents in high-risk barangays to leave their homes. Mr. Timbal also said members of the uniformed and law enforcement services like the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Philippine National Police, the Bureau of Fire Protection, and the Philippine Coast Guard are always ready for deployment to assist them in evacuation activities. Meanwhile, President Duterte said it is prudent to keep classes suspended in areas within Taal volcano's 7-kilometer danger zone. In the second part of the pre-recorded talk to the people that was aired today, he made this remark after Department of Education or DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones said classes have been suspended in at least 19 schools in Batangas for the protection of the students. Take a look.
Pero yung mga schools na na-identified as permanent danger zones, yung na-identify na they are already compromised, they could be compromised, mag-escalate ang ating pagputok ng volcano, nag-suspend tayo ng classes, Mr. President.
Normalcy must be achieved there sa ano.
Yes.
Pag hindi pa normal situation, then it would be on the side of prudence na huwag na natin expose yung mga anak.
The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, raised Taal volcano status to alert level 3 after its phreatomagmatic eruption on Saturday. Level 3 means there is magmatic unrest within the volcano. And PHIVOLCS Director Renato Solidum earlier said the alert level 3 declared over Taal volcano may be lowered to alert level 2 if eruptions stop in the next 2 weeks. In January, President Duterte approved the expansion of limited face-to-face classes in areas under COVID-19 alert levels 1 and 2. The DepEd recommended a progressive expansion of limited in-person classes by February, wherein only teaching and non-teaching staff who have been evacuated or who have been vaccinated against COVID-19 would be allowed to participate. DepEd's pilot run of physical classes ended on December 22, wherein more than 200 schools conducted classes for almost about 15,000 students. Batangas is under COVID-19 alert level 1 until the end of March. In other news, President Joe Biden said that the United States is forging strongly ahead on its growing Asia-Pacific focus despite the crisis sparked by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Hosting Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong in the Oval Office, Mr. Biden described the United States as a proud Indo-Pacific nation. Prime Minister Lee, meanwhile, urges closer ties between the U.S. and the Asian.
And even as we address the crisis in Europe, my administration is strongly supportive of moving rapidly to implement the Indo-Pacific strategy we've talked about. And the United States is a proud Indo-Pacific nation. Borders can't be changed by force, and all the nations, large and small, are equal and sovereign in the right for their sovereignty. And I want to thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for Singapore's principled leadership in supporting the people of Ukraine. I know it's not easy, but I want to thank you for it. You're a man of principle, and you've stepped up every time you've had to.
Singapore is a very good partner of the United States. We're a major security cooperation partner of the U.S. And our relations are doing very well, economically as well as in the security and defense realms. And they prosper and grow and venture into new areas continuously. And I hope to discuss that with the President today, as well as to further the relationship between the U.S. and ASEAN. We will, of course, exchange views also on Ukraine and what that means for the Asia-Pacific region. Singapore hopes that the United States, amidst all its many preoccupations, will continue to deepen its relationship with countries in the Asia-Pacific, China certainly, but also other countries besides China, and deepen it substantially in many different ways.
The Biden administration has repeatedly characterized the Asia-Pacific region, and particularly the rise of Communist China, as the #1 strategic issue for the U.S. The world's two biggest economies are at loggerheads over trade, human rights, and more broadly, what Biden often portrays as a defining struggle in the 21st century between the globe's autocracies and democracies. But concerns about China have been pushed to the back burner by the emergency in Europe, where Russia's military is in its second month of attacking neighboring pro-Western Ukraine in a crisis more reminiscent of a Cold War. Singapore announced in February it was joining other pro-Western powers in imposing sanctions on Russia, including blocking financial transactions. The wealthy city state rarely sanctions other countries without UN backing, but Foreign Affairs Minister Vivian Balakrishnan cited the unprecedented gravity of the crisis in Ukraine. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden also said there is a consensus among NATO allies to see what Russia has to offer in negotiations with Ukraine, but that they will keep strong sanctions on Moscow. Now this, during a press conference with Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, still at the White House. Take a look.
Had a meeting with the heads of state of our 4 allies in NATO, France, Germany, the United States, and Great Britain. And there seems to be a consensus that let's just see what they have to offer. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to keep strong the sanctions. We're going to continue to provide the Ukrainian military with their capacity to defend themselves. And we're going to continue to keep a close eye on what's going on. And I'm looking forward to hosting the ASEAN leaders here in Washington, D.C. for a special summit this spring. We also discussed a wide range of concerns for peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific. That includes ensuring that all nations in the region, including China, uphold the principles that enable a free and open region.
ASEAN in Focus will be right back. Stay tuned.
Hoy, Mr. Pwede! Masama at bawal ang pag-inom!
Diyan ka na naman sa kakabawal mo, Mr. Bawal eh. Napaka-KJ mo.
Walang magandang dulot ang pag-inom! Lalo na't eleksyon ngayon! Bawal yan!
Ayon sa Omnibus Election Code, ang pagbibenta, pagbili o pag-inom ng alak sa araw ng eleksyon ay isang election offense.
Inggit ka lang! Oye, oye! Pakawalan niyo ako! Hindi na ako uulit!
Hay nako! Nasa uli talaga ang pagsisisi. Don't drink and vote. Ako si Mr. Bawal na nagpapaalala na hindi na nga mabuti ang pag-inom ng alak, tapos sa eleksyon, gagawin mo pa? Bawal yan!
A public service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti. at tagumpay.
Welcome back. People in Singapore no longer have to wear masks outdoors as the city-state eases a raft of COVID restrictions. Take a look.
Okay, it feels really liberating because, I mean, it's been like almost 2-3 years of the pandemic, right? Yeah, so I think being outdoors without a mask is something that I guess Singapore is working towards too, and I'm glad it's happening now.
The approach in Singapore has been very cautious, but certainly there are elements of it that are going to be make it a lot more pleasant here. I think being able to socialise in larger groups, the return of live music and of live broadcast of sport will be certainly very pleasurable.
You know, having our lungs are very happy because we can breathe in the fresh air once again.
While it was joy for many people, others decided to remain cautious and continue with the mask wearing. Singapore's approach stands in contrast to rival financial hub Hong Kong, where arrivals are still required to undergo lengthy quarantines in hotels. Other countries in the Asia-Pacific that have recently announced an easing of travel restrictions include Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Now, Singapore will also lift restrictions for all vaccinated travelers from April 1st, with Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong hailing it as a major milestone in the aviation hub's efforts to live with COVID-19. Only travelers on a restricted list will face curbs in entering Singapore, although there are currently no countries on that list. Take a look.
The Omicron situation is well under control. Nearly all our cases are domestic, originating within the community. Arrivals from abroad constitute only a very small proportion of cases. We can therefore safely open up our borders. We will drastically streamline testing and quarantine requirements for travelers. This simplified vaccination travel framework will let Singaporeans travel abroad more easily, almost like before COVID-19. It will also lift most restrictions for fully vaccinated visitors entering Singapore. This will reconnect Singapore with the world. It will give a much-needed boost to businesses, particularly the tourism sector. And it will help Singapore reclaim its position as a business and aviation hub. These domestic and cross-border changes represent a major step towards living with COVID-19. But they stop short of a complete opening up. We remain watchful because COVID-19 may yet bring further surprises.
Myanmar. In other news, Myanmar junta troops torched dozens of houses across 3 villages in the restive northern region last week. That according to villagers and local media, as the junta struggles to crush resistance to its rule. Let's listen in. The Southeast Asian country has been in chaos since a putsch last February, with anti-coup People's Defense Force fighters clashing with junta troops across the nation. The northern Saging region has seen fierce fighting and bloody reprisals, with the junta calling it airstrikes and reports widespread of soldiers burning villages. Local Ko Kiao said troops arrived in Tamok village in Kin U Township in the afternoon of March 15. Now, this footage obtained by AFP from 3 villages showed ruined buildings, blackened trees, piles of smoldering ash, and some houses were still standing. The junta has previously rebuffed claims its troops have torched houses, accusing terrorist People's Defense Force fighters of starting the fires. In mid-December, the U.S. and United Nations condemned the junta over what Washington described as credible and sickening reports of the killing of 11 villagers, including children, in the Sagaing region. Meanwhile, Myanmar's junta said it will annihilate coup opponents. Now that, according to Army Chief Min Aung Hlaing on Sunday, as the military staged a show of force on the anniversary of its bloodiest crackdown so far on democracy protests. Take a look. Presiding over the annual parade that showcased tanks, truck-mounted missiles, artillery, and troops on horseback, Min Aung Hlaing told about 8,000 assembled security personnel that the army would not let up. The military will no longer negotiate and annihilate until the end the groups fighting to overturn its rule. This, he said, ahead of the Armed Forces Day procession in Army-built capital, Naypyidaw. Jets, as we saw there, flew overhead, trailing the yellow, red, and green of the national flag, while state media showed women lining the streets leading to the parade ground to give flowers and place garlands on the marching soldiers. Armed Forces Day commemorates the start of local resistance to the Japanese occupation during World War II and usually features a military parade attended by foreign officers and diplomats. Meanwhile, Bangladesh has shut the largest private school for Rohingya refugees in a further blow to the educational prospects of thousands of children stuck in vast camps in the country's southeast. Take a look.
dunia mati insan lo ini tuh kan dream wish take kintu wish yang fura gete ham ke education dian zor lo to indila mi kya atyo kan ambition ase जीवन के अंत को डॉक्टर बनते हो ना किंतु हम साइड दे आरा दे proper education ना पारे even class 10 of the matriculation of the फात गई ना पारे
হঠাৎ করে আইপিবিএন তো গিয়ে যাই বাদ আমরা তো ফুসার গজে পারমিশন দাহা সেসির কাগজপত্র লই আমরা আর হদি সেসির পারমিশন কাগজপত্র নাই মফিদ ভাবে আছে আমরা প্রথমলতি মাস্টার মবুল্লা সেসি তোতে পুলিশ তোতে বেগুলা তো পারমিশন লে আর কাগজপত্র নদে কাগজপত্র দিয়ে দলি আনি বারাতা বে আর ন কাগজ ন দেং হয়ে গালে হয়ে তেলতে আজ পর্যন্ত চলাত আসিল এতদিন পর্যন্ত আর আল্লাহ হনকে শুনেছিল यार हठात করে দেরা বিবিএন ইয়ান হুসার করে আনার স্কুল বন্ধ হই
To Singapore now, where the top court dismissed a mentally disabled Malaysian man's last-ditch appeal against a death sentence, with his family saying they were devastated and shocked by the ruling. Nagenthran K. Dharmalingam was arrested in 2009 for trafficking a small amount of heroin into the city-state, which has some of the world's toughest drug laws, and handed a then mandatory death sentence the following year. Take a look.
I think it's extremely disappointing that we would continue to implement and impose such a cruel system of punishment, and it's not just Nagin, right? It's beyond that. There are over 50 people on death row that we know of. And I think just in the case of Nagin and the other inmates who have been given execution notices recently, we are seeing patterns of, poverty, difficult socioeconomic circumstances, issues of substance use disorder, lack of access to opportunities, and also concerns about whether they have psychosocial disabilities. So to me, it's really clear that the death penalty in Singapore is disproportionately imposed on marginalized and vulnerable people.
Now, Nagenthran was arrested at the age of 21 after a bundle of heroin weighing about 43 grams, about 1.5 ounces, equivalent to about 3 tablespoons, was found strapped to his thigh as he sought to enter Singapore. Now, supporters say he has an IQ of 69, a level recognized as a disability, and was coerced into committing the crime. But authorities have defended his conviction, saying that legal rulings found he knew what he was doing at the time of the offense. M. Ravi, a human rights lawyer assisting in the case, said no more appeals would be lodged and the execution could take place in days. ASEAN in Focus will be right back. Stay tuned.
Paano makakaboto yun? May kapansanan nga.
Paano naman sa mga no read, no write? Hindi pa rin pwedeng bumoto.
Pwedeng bumoto! Ang mga illiterate o ang mga hindi marunong magbasa o magsulat, maging ang mga PWD, may karapatan silang bumoto.
Paano?
Maaaring magdala ng mga kasama ang mga illiterate at PWD para maalalayan sila sa kanilang pagboto o sa mga pagkakataong kailangan nila ng tulong.
Kahit sino, pwede nilang isama?
No, dapat kamag-anak na kadugo ng botante ang kasama nila. Magdala lamang sila ng PWD ID. Ano bang kapansanan ng kakilala mo?
Ayun, nakahiga lang eh. Hindi makabangon. May sakit daw siyang love nut.
Hindi kapansanan yun. Alam ko na. Eto sa balutamol, balutromycin. Pakainin nyo para ganahan.
Para sa karagdagang kaalaman, makipag-ugnayan lang sa pinakamalapit na barangay o bisitahin ang COMELEC website.
A public service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat.
Welcome to Mobile Legends!
Welcome back. Vietnamese car manufacturer VinFast announced it will build a $2 billion electric vehicle factory in the U.S. state of North Carolina amid its push to enter the competitive global market for EVs. President Joe Biden cheered the announcement of the 800-hectare factory in Chatham County that will also make electric buses and EV batteries, calling it the latest example of, quote, my economic strategy at work. VinFast said construction of the facility that will be able to produce 150,000 vehicles a year would start this year once a permit is obtained and aim to finish by 2024. In a statement, the automaker said the factory would produce the 5-passenger VinFast VF8 and the 7-passenger VinFast VF9, both of which are all-electric SUVs. Under the company's memorandum of understanding with the state of Carolina, VinFast said it would expand the factory in the future. The car maker is a subsidiary of Vietnam's largest private conglomerate, Vin Group, which is owned by Pham Nhat Vuong, the country's richest man, with a fortune Forbes estimates as $6.3 billion. A Vietnamese father has spent hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars converting an old van into a wooden tank for his son. Take a look.
Cái điều mà mình cảm thấy tự hào nhất và đó là con trai mình rất là vui. Khi mà mình làm xong chiếc xe này thì con mình nó rất là hạnh phúc. Và mỗi khi mình chở con mình trên chiếc xe tăng này thì nó đều khá là quẩy, nó rất là vui. Cái chiếc xe này thì mình chỉ nghĩ đơn giản thôi, giống như là một chiếc xe ô tô bình thường. Chỉ là mình cải tiến nó giống như một chiếc xe tăng để nó thú vị hơn. Khi mà mình và con mình cùng đi chơi trên chiếc xe này thì nó sẽ vui hơn. Còn chiếc xe này thì nó không có bất cứ một cái gì nó liên quan đến vũ khí hay là chiến tranh cả. Nếu như mình suy nghĩ nếu như tất cả những chiếc xe tăng trên thế giới đều giống như chiếc xe tăng của mình thì tất cả những chiếc xe tăng trên thế giới không có gì nguy hiểm và nó sẽ là những cái điều rất là thú vị.
A blood donation drive where Iglesia Ni Cristo members joined this campaign of the Laos Red Cross. Our correspondent from Laos, Marian Lial, is at the scene. Marian.
Members of Iglesia Ni Cristo here in Laos voluntarily donate blood here in Lao Red Cross. The volunteers follow the procedures in how they can donate blood, such as vital signs checking, and they also follow the health protocols to curb the spread of COVID-19.
Katulad po ng laging itinatagubili ng ating pong namamahala, utos po ng ating Panginoong Diyos na tulungan po natin ang ating pong kapwa na nangangailangan ng ating tulong sa abot po ng ating pong makakaya.
The volunteers are thankful for the free t-shirts that is given by Lao Red Cross. The social-civic activity of the Iglesia Ni Cristo members in Laos is a proof that no matter where they are, they're always united with the church administration in doing good to those who are in need. Reporting from Laos, I am Marian Lial. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Marian. A Sumatran rhino has successfully given birth in an Indonesian sanctuary, according to environment officials, in a boost for conservation efforts targeting the critically endangered animal. Take a look. And that's the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations and beyond. Stay updated about the region. I'm Alma Angeles. We'll live in interesting times.
We are open for business, giving MSMEs the latest market trends and business opportunities. Open for business, only on Net 25.
Bilang huling linggo natin magkakasama,
Mag-intro ka na. Hi guys, 20 Danny.
samahan nyo kaming balikan ang mga pinaka-laptip na videos na pinagsaluhan natin.
Tutubusin.
Ang dami talagang laugh.
Uy, sana all.
Galit na yung miss. Huwag na huwag kayong tatakbo. Talagang tatawa kayo to the max.
Nakapagod na si daddy mag-work.
Major ko.
Yung spelling ba ng yellow ma? Double L ma? Ala, sige, gawin mong tatlo. Puro ka cellphone.
Funniest Nakaball videos.
Panoorin ang bang-bang na bakbakan ng mga Mobile Legends players na Tara Gamers. Anong prutas ang may scientific name? Bakit? Karni ko agad yung scientific name. Bakit si Snap ang naisip mo dyan?
Parang di niya alam kasi lalaki siya eh.
Ngayong Sunday, alas 7 ng gabi sa Net 25.
Laughter is in the air dahil amoy na ang simoy ng katatawanan sa pagbabalik ng comedy prank show na talagang mapapawaw ang lahat sa ating ditong Laugh Trip Moments.
I'm starving!
Are you crazy? Pagkulitan at tawanan kasama ang mga prangkito at prangkita na always ready sa mga hinanda naming pranks that will surely make you go crazy. Kasama pa rin ang mastermind ng mga nakakaaliw na practical jokes na si Joey De Leon. It's me! It's me! No! It's me! Oh no! It's Biro only! Malapit na sa Net 25.
Pala ang Purple Shoes at abangan nyo kami bilang guest performer sa Letters and Music ngayong linggo. April 3, 1 to 2 p.m. Siyempre, dito lamang sa Net 25. See you!
So, image ba ng kandidato ang problema? Nandito na ako to save the day!
Uy, showy! Popcorn!
Wait lang.
Mayor, kumusta ka na? Sana gumaling ka na agad.
So kaya mo lang ginagawa lahat to? Para sa akin? Baka pag nalaman ng mga taga-pinagkaisahan yan, hindi ka nila seryosohin.
Panalo o talo, it's you! Weeknights pagkatapos ng Mi Esperanza. Dito lang sa Net 25, Prime Time ng Pamilya.
Hindi lang basta guest to.
Ay, binansagang! Diamond Star!
Yes! Maricel, sorry. Hi! Hey, how are you?
3, 2, action!
Huwag mo akong makeri-keri.
Ang inyong pinakabagong gag show.
Dito sa Net 25!
Walang iba kundi ang
Quezon City!
1, 2, 3.
Welcome to Mobile Legends!
Nang mag-isang dibdib sina Cesar at Elsa, tila sila nang may pinakamasayang pagsasama. Lumipas ang mga taon, matutuklasan nila na walang
Hindi
forever.
ba ako pagod? Nag-drop out sa kolehiyo ang anak mong lalaki at alas 3 pa lang ng madaling araw nagtatrabaho na sa palengke. Ikaw na aman ni ayaw mag-overtime? May kasamang lalaki sa kwartong anak mong babae at di mo pinagsabihan. Wala lang.
Kahit napapagod ang puso sa bigat ng pasanin na binabalikat mag-isa, sinikap ni Elsa maitaguyod ang pamilya.